clearing close in the forest you'll find a fabulous banquet, a fairy ball. If you close your eyes and you open your mind, the veil disappears and you'll see it all.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video I am back with yet another in my haunted house series. I know how much you guys have missed it. I was kind of holding back for a little while because I didn't want to run out of stories, but I'm now in the mood to continue telling them, because once I tell one, it's like I get so excited to keep sharing them with you guys. I'll like read your comments and I'll see that you guys enjoyed it, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to share another one with them because I have so much more. So here we are. Today's video has to do with one of my cousins, and this one actually just makes me laugh in a lot of ways because the paranormal world can be very, very opinionated sometimes and very strong-minded, even if they are no longer in this physical realm. And that is exactly what my cousin experienced, and so I'm excited to share it with you guys. So for those of you who may be new to my channel, you are unfamiliar with the Haunted House series, I will leave a link to the series down below. I grew up in a haunted house that my grandparents owned, and it actually had a portal / vortex in the basement laundry room. So there was like continuous activity in this house. There were certain like entities and stuff that would tend to stick around, but then there were some that would just come and they would go, and that was just kind of that. And a lot of us who lived there full time just kind of learned to accept it. As my grandma says, when I brought her here on my channel, she says, I wouldn't call it haunted, I would call it visited. And it was definitely visited. But on top of being visited by like a ton of spirits and fairies and gnomes and all of that mystical, magical, paranormal, unearthly stuff, it was visited by a lot of family members and friends, because my grandparents had a way of opening their doors to anybody and everybody and just being the epitome, oh my goodness, the epitome, and just being the epitome of what grandparents are all about, and that is just welcoming you in and feeding you and loving you and never questioning when you're leaving. So one of my older cousins, he is quite a bit older than me, had asked if he could come and stay with my grandparents for the weekend. And my grandparents were actually going to be going away for one of the nights of that weekend. It was a Saturday night. They were going away up to Barrie because that's where their family is from. So they were going up to Barrie for the night, but they told him as long as he like behaved himself and everything was good, he would be able to still stay there that night as long as he was a well-behaved in his late teenage years. Now, my cousin is definitely a good guy, but he also is definitely somebody who likes to push the limits a little bit. And my grandparents, like, they were cool with some limit pushing, but at the same time, you know, this is their home, and they were really, or my grandma more so, was very particular on keeping it looking nice and keeping it clean and things like that. And so his idea of being well behaved for that night didn't necessarily go together with my grandma's. Now, if you guys know about my haunted house series, you know that this house had a pool in the backyard. It was one of my favorite things growing up. And so my cousin decided on that Saturday night that he was going to have the place to himself, that he was going to actually throw a pool party with like a group of his friends. So he invited a group of his friends over, and they were gonna have some drinks, which was underage, and a little bit of a party. Now, he never mentioned this to my grandparents because my grandparents were very strict around the pool. They were very particular on like nobody, like not everybody could be drinking when they're all in the pool, and they're very particular on like supervision and just pool safety in general, because we'd had a couple of not close calls, but you guys know the time with my mom and things like that, and my grandpa was just very much like pool safety. Like, he would not have approved, first of all, of them underage drinking. Like, he was like, I think he was 18, and in Canada it's 19, so he wasn't like ridiculously underage by any means. He was like 18, but my grandpa would not have approved of a group of 18-year-olds drinking by the pool. Like, it just sounds so dangerous. So one thing that my grandma was really keen on was keeping her gardens clean. And as you guys know, we had some like mystical things around the house that we believed wanted to keep the garden clean too. Like my uncle, when he was a small kid, and a lot of us as small children, thought that we saw gnomes going to tidy up and maintain the gardens, and fairies and things like that. So this like was a big thing in this house, like spiritually and physically, like keeping the gardens clean. So I guess his night started and everybody was kind of drinking, and like I mentioned, my grandpa would not have approved of this. So they were all kind of drinking, having a good time, and all of a sudden they say that this authority-like figure showed up in the backyard and was like yelling like, Barry wouldn't want you guys all back here drinking, like you need to be smarter than this, like take it inside, blah, 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 was like yelling at them. And he assumed, okay, this is like a real person. Clearly my grandparents have like had somebody on watch in the neighborhood. Let's like move it to like the backyard, like the opposite side of the backyard. So they kind of like finished up their swimming and they moved over to like this other area of the backyard. Well, now they were near like the gardens and things like that. And as you guys know, some people can't, or some people aren't the most respectful when they're like having a party. And it wasn't like a major party, but still like they were drinking, it was a social thing. And people started to put like their beer cans like into my grandmother's garden. Now, my cousin claims that he didn't really realize that. I mean, I guess when you're drinking, you don't realize every single thing going on in your surroundings, but I guess like beer cans and things had accumulated into my grandma's garden. Well, all of his friends leave, everything's all good, and he decides to go to sleep because my grandparents weren't supposed to be home until like early afternoon, like around 2 o'clock. So he figured he would get up and he would kind of make sure everything was in order and tidied and things like that. And he was like praying that this man wouldn't tell my grandpa, which he thought he was just like a little rat. Anyways, my cousin says that around 7 in the morning, he was awoken by a male voice yelling in his room saying, "You need to clean up your grandmother's garden or she is going to be so upset with you. Go out there and clean up the garden." And so he was all like groggy and stuff, and I guess he ended up rolling over and falling back to sleep. Well, when he woke up, it was about 3 p.m. He had slept right into the afternoon. My grandparents were home. And that was when he realized, oh my goodness, I didn't clean up the garden. I fell back asleep. They're gonna be so mad at me. So he goes upstairs and he tells my grandma, "Grandma, I'm so sorry. Like, I know that Grandpa told me to clean up the garden. Like, I should have picked up the stuff, whatever. My friends must have been like reckless. They put beer in the garden, whatever." And my grandma looks at him and she's like, "What are you talking about?" And my grandpa comes in the room and he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "You came in my room at like 7 this morning and yelled at me in the darkness to go outside and clean up the garden because if not, Grandma was gonna kill me." And my grandparents go, "You realize we only got home about an hour ago, right?" So my cousin's mind is kind of blown right now. And he gets up and he goes and looks outside and the garden is completely cleaned up. Everything is cleaned up that he didn't clean, and there are no like garbage bags around with the stuff in it. And that's when he starts to ask my grandpa, like, "Who was your friend that came and like yelled at us yesterday, like appeared in the backyard?" And my grandpa was like, "I have no idea who you're talking about. We didn't tell anybody to watch you because we trusted you." And that was when my cousin pieced the voices together. He realized that the man that had yelled outside to get away from the pool was the same man who had yelled downstairs in the darkness, so he didn't see him, saying, "You need to clean up the garden or your grandmother's gonna be so upset with you." And then the garden was magically cleaned up. And that's when my cousin realized that it must have been a ghost with my grandparents' best interest at heart, because even if that man had been a real man, which he remembers very distinctively to this day, that when he pieced it, the voices were identical. Even if that had been a real man, there's no way he would have gotten into the house. Like, everything was locked up. There's no reason he would have went downstairs into that guest bedroom that my cousin had been staying in. And there is really no explanation for how he would have got in or why the garden would have been cleaned up to a T. Spotless, cleaned up, and perfectly. And when my cousin admitted everything to my grandma, she just laughed and she said thank you to the air, because she realized that there was some sort of spirit that was looking out for the fact that, one, my grandpa wouldn't have liked all of those people by the pool drinking, and for two, she wouldn't have liked beer cans all inside of her garden. And I know this story sounds crazy. I wasn't there, but my cousin isn't somebody who talks about stuff like this or somebody who really believes in stuff like this. Like, it's not that he doesn't believe, it's like he just is kind of in between, and he swears it had to have been a ghost because it was just far too coincidental. Now, who this ghost was, nobody could piece together. I personally never had an old man in the backyard yelling at me, but I also was never a teenager doing naughty things in the backyard, so I don't know, but I think that it's such an incredible story. I wanted to share it with you guys because, like I said, sometimes the spirit world has strong opinions on things, or they know that other people do, and they have no problem coming through the veil into our dimension and sharing it with us. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this story. When my cousin told me it, because I always tell you guys, like, now my family and I, we continuously talk because you guys enjoy this series so much, and I only have so many personal experiences. I still have some more, but I try to find out other people's experiences so I can prolong this series as long as possible. And when my cousin told me this, I just laughed, and I thought that it was such an incredible, hilarious paranormal story, and goes to show that ghosts aren't always evil or grumpy in the ways that people make them out to be, that sometimes they just want you to get yourself together and behave. But I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's story, and if you guys have any opinions on who you think this man was, why you think he said or did what he did, please, 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 before you click out of this video, drop a comment down below and let me know, because one of my favorite things about the Haunted House series is how much we all talk about it in the comments below and how many different opinions you guys have. So please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and that is it for today's Haunted House video. If you guys are new to my channel, or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would absolutely love it if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button. I post a ton of videos, so I don't want you to miss when I upload. And on that note of not missing when I upload, if you do enjoy my content, please turn on your post notifications, because sometimes YouTube tends to not notify people when I do upload. So please do that. And if you enjoyed today's video, also give it a big thumbs up, because it makes my heart super happy, and I really, really do appreciate it so much. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness. And until next time, I love you.